Welcome to That's So Intimate,
a podcast where we explore living well through deep, curious conversations.
I'm Sarah, guide at Rad Intimacy, inviting you to remember your sacred self.
I'm Bryan, a guide at Sadhana Yoga School, where we share wisdom for life.
Let's get intimate.
3, 2, 1, go.
Hi, friends. I want to start with a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, and they say, the most precious gift we can offer others is our presence. So today we wanted to touch into that concept of presence and holding space, creating energy or sacred space, basically container holding and what all that means. I guess for this one, we don't specifically have a definition.
You were thinking of it as like a space holder or space itself?
I think it's both the leadership of holding the space and what the space is itself. One thing I liked was this art, maybe it's a subtle art, but powerful, is the invisible architecture of connection. I like thinking of it that way. Like hopefully someone coming into a room that sits with us at, like, say, a yes gathering won't notice that we've thought through what it means to cross the threshold and welcome them into the studio. But we do it with intention, right? We hand them a candle and we say namaste and honor them as they enter into what we're trying to build a secret space.
Yeah, that's interesting using that invisible word. Because when you're the one curating the space, there's nothing invisible about it. It's very intentional.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like you choose the space, you might choose the music, the temperature, the people, like you're curating a lot of it. But then when we go into a space, like a restaurant, it's been curated for us, but those aspects are more invisible to us. We don't recognize that, oh, they have it. Certain music. It does affect us, but we don't necessarily, a lot of it could be subconscious.
It's interesting too that depending on what culture you grew up in, you're familiar with certain types of spaces. Like, maybe you're familiar with a certain type of nature that's outside your door when you're a kid. You're familiar with the grocery store. You're familiar with what school's like and what to expect within all of those containers. But it's interesting contrasting that to, like, say, our yes gatherings. It might feel different. I mean, maybe it doesn't for people who go to regular yoga classes or retreats or things. Like, they might be expecting to be, greeted in a certain way and for there to be soothing music and an altar and, cacao. But if not, then it's quite different, right? Like, energetically should feel different within your body, right?
So you're talking about when we go into a space that feels new to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're familiar with the ones that we know. So then there's kind of like, almost like we have to learn how to be in a new space.
So that it's the leadership of whoever's holding the container, the host, the facilitator, to kind of share that. Right. Like some of it could be shared in like a flyer or in some sort of like promotion of whatever like the event is or the workshop is. And yet when you arrive, there is some, this is what we're doing here. Not only the purpose, but like, are there any spoken or unspoken sort of like rules or, ways of being within the space?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I think about like a yoga class, if we have somebody it's their first yoga class, there has to be a lot more of that explicit explanation of what the space is. Even introducing, here's the bathroom, here's where the mats are. Like letting people feel comfortable with the physical space. And then it's like, okay, we can take our socks off, shoes off, put your mat here.
Yeah, orienting to the space is definitely a big part of making sure that if their basic needs are taken care of, like knowing where the restroom is, the exits are, like this sort of like foundational things that they can really bring more presence when they come. And that makes me think of a term that we use in, I don't know if it's healing spaces, but a lot of this personal work is called access needs. So sometimes that can look like spectrum differences, or it can look like food allergies if there's food present, or just any special request that would allow the attendee or whatever the person coming to be able to get the most out of whatever the sort of gathering is.
Yeah, so if we have somebody who's new to that space, we're going to be spending time explicitly sharing that. Whereas if we get somebody who's used to that space and they already know, let's say, the physical space, and they kind of know what a yoga class is, they're not as concerned about that because they already know it. So then you can move on to other levels of how to create the space. But you need that foundation of to create familiarity and comfort for people. And the quicker you can do that, the better.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, kind of creating that container, like the foundational things you're talking about, helps people bloom, grow, participate. Like depth can be possible there. And so a couple other things I would say that sometimes, depending on what the space is, are requirements or are at least nice to haves, is like clear agreements, like what, like a purpose, and like also how are we sort of like behaving, what's acceptable in the space, maybe time boundaries, right? Like some like gatherings are like have a start time, no end time. That can make people feel uneasy, right? So like, or like a schedule for how it'll go. If it's a couple-hour workshop, it's like, giving them the lay of the land for how we'll spend the time for the next few hours. Defined roles, like making sure they feel held, that there's someone sort of intentionally leading this, right? They're the ones holding the space and navigating and moving things forward and closing with intention. Like all of that makes people feel safe.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. If the organizer of the space or curator of the space or leader of the space, depending on the context, if they can take responsibility for keeping that atmosphere of the space, then other people can just be in it. Even if it's as simple as keeping track of the time.
Right.
Like, we're going to be here for 1 hour. I'll let you know when we're done. Then I don't need to check my watch. I can just like surrender that aspect and know that it's taken care of.
Mm.
Or food, like I don't need to bring any food. I know that it's a lunch meeting and they're going to have food, so I don't need to worry about that. It's like, great.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be seemingly trivial things, but those let people relax and be in the space. So then we're kind of talking about two different types of experience: the experience of the facilitator
Mm-hmm.
and then the experience of the participator.
Yeah.
And there can be some overlap, but they're actually quite different. As a facilitator, it's a different experience than being a participant.
Very much. You have more experience being the space holder or the facilitator, and maybe a little bit less being a participant. And yet, I think in our lives, we're bound to be both. And so it's kind of important, I think, to understand the perspective of both positions. I'm not saying everyone listening here is going to like facilitate some kind of like yoga class workshop thing, but you'll host a party at your house.
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean? Like you'll be in a space at some point at work. Maybe you're leading a meeting. So it's important to see and understand both aspects. Maybe even like pay attention to when you do feel really held in a space and the structure is really there so that everybody can really get the most out of it. Like you've been in one of those meetings where you're like, why did we even have a meeting? This could have been an email, right? That's like a common refrain. And yet, when you're in a really good meeting and you get a lot accomplished because everything is structured in a way that allows people to participate well, it's efficient, It's, time sensitive, it's well led, it's, it's like a different experience, and we can learn from that when we're participants too.
Yeah, so much there. I'd like it if we could zoom out a little bit and talk about spaces just in terms of everyday spaces, because, at first I think like, oh, holding space. Yeah, a yoga group or a yes group or something. But there's also spaces like each restaurant is different in town, or a bar, like compare, or the YMCA, or like let's compare like the space of a bar versus a yoga class. And they're kind of not explicitly stated, the rules of the spaces.
Mm.
But my understanding is that it's totally acceptable to have alcohol and get mildly drunk at a bar and to feel the buzz.
And loud and
And
rambunctious.
yeah, and you can be loud and you can play ping pong and you can miss the ball or
and
what,
dance.
and dance and that's what's the norm there, and that's the space for that. It's not explicitly stated when you walk in, this is a space for doing this. So,
You kind of just learn it through experience a bit, right?
yeah, so while some people pick up on that right away, I'm just learning that actually. I didn't even really, I've just been thinking the last few weeks, like, oh, okay, so I guess I knew that's what people did there, but I never thought like, oh, I want to be in a space where I could, I don't know, have some drinks and be loud. I want to go to a bar. I never thought that. I always thought like, oh, some of my friends are going to the bar. What do you do at a bar? I kind of approached it backwards, more like I want to be with some people. What do you do at that space to fit in, rather than this is me looking for a space
To do this thing.
to do this thing.
Oh, yeah.
But I guess a lot of people go to a bar because that's what they want to do. I never thought about that.
You know what's funny? I just have a quick little story is we have a nonprofit group locally called the Women's Collective, and we just had a Galentine's party. And a couple things is we were dancing at that party, and we were kind of doing like a dance choreography routine type thing. So we were kind of like learning and fumbling and having fun and doing it to music and trying to do it in time and all this sort of stuff. And we were dancing and thinking, I miss when we used to go out dancing, and all of us, were reminiscing on a time when we were in our like maybe early 20s or something, go out to a club. The whole point was, I want to go dancing. I mean, sometimes it might be like, ooh, I want, somebody to like flirt with, or there might be some like social things in there. But a lot of times it was just like a way to let loose and have fun and actually dance. And like, we miss dancing.
Yeah.
So there's that, right? Like that you're going to a space looking for a certain experience.
But then that's the space for it. Whereas if you're in the grocery store, it's not really the space to put on music and dance. Like there's certain spaces for being certain ways. And so many of those are not explicitly stated. We have to learn them through I guess it's related to emotional intuition or social intuition. Social intuition, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like being able to intuit and understand what each space is based on what we see.
I mean, honestly, the more clear and descriptive we can be, like if a friend is inviting you to a bar, if they could just say, I really want to sit down with a beer and have a conversation with you, or I would love to play pool, or I'd love to sing karaoke. Like if they could just say, but a lot of people don't, right? And that was another thing that sort of, I think, fell through the cracks with this Galentine's Day party is some of us on the board of this nonprofit knew the activity we were doing, which was that we were learning a choreography and learning a dance. But some of the people who came didn't know that. And so that was kind of our fault that we didn't communicate that well, what to expect.
Yeah,
They knew it was a Galentine's party. They didn't know that we were doing that activity. So this woman was like, I would have worn a sports bra had I known, right? So that's like a huge part
Yeah.
of the leadership of organizing something like this, is making sure everybody understands what to expect.
Yeah, and what brings that up for me is if we're curating a space and we have an intention for to create a certain feeling or outcome for people, maybe the activity that we're doing doesn't seem like it's not the goal, it's just a means, right? So
Mm.
maybe the dance was the goal and people to have fun doing this dance, or maybe the goal was to connect and then the dance was just party to do that. So that's like do we communicate, oh, we're doing this dance, or do we communicate we're connecting with each other?
Mm.
Or maybe we communicate both,
Hmm.
dancing with the intention of connecting with each other. I don't know what your overall intention was, but so sometimes the details may not seem that important for the facilitator, but if you're not matching the activities with people, like if people aren't enjoying the activities, it's a mismatch. So yeah, probably the more transparency, the better. I know that I would have benefited in my life if people told me what you do at a bar
Yeah.
and why you go.
What's the
Or,
purpose?
yeah, what's the purpose? Or just even like for me, it was like even just a party, like at a house or anything. Like I didn't understand what the purpose was.
Yeah.
Like it's like a weird space, like that's different than, has different norms and normal life, right? It's
Hmm.
like you can be it's a space to be a different type of person and to do different types of things.
Yeah, I think now's a great time to bring up the work of Priya Parker. She wrote a book called The Art of Gathering. So often she's talking about hosting some kind of a gathering, not often like, oh, come meet me at a bar type thing that we were just talking about, but she says purpose first. And so I kind of feel like that might have helped you a little bit. Like, what's the point? What are we doing? Like, why would I want to go? Like, help me understand, right?
Yeah, helps
So
me.
purpose first, and then the leadership being the host, or whatever term you want to use. In her words, it's host. It could be facilitator, it could be whatever. That it's their job to create that container, right? They're the cup, you're the water, and you are giving them some structure around what to expect from it. Start time, end time. Do I wear a certain thing? What activity are we doing? Is there food? Like all that sort of stuff. And then it helps shape the energy of what to expect, and in the space. And then she's big on also like closing with intention. So it's like building and communicating something that's very clear for the person you're inviting, so that they understand what they're saying yes to.
I love that idea. So I'm thinking that would match my temperament very well if I know exactly what to get in and know what the expectations are. Like, do I bring a dish to share or not?
Yeah.
Like that's something I struggle with. Like when my friends invite me over to dinner, I know it's polite to ask what to bring, or I think it is. And then sometimes it seems like when there's more people, then it's more common to bring something to share. When it's kind of like more just like two couples, and it's like they'll say like, "Oh no, just come."
Mm.
Now, I don't know if they really mean just come, but that's what they'll say. So I'm still working on that. Like, what is the real norm of that space? But if somebody organizes something and says, what we're wearing, this is what we're doing, this is what you can bring, that helps me to know. Some people probably don't need that. So some people, it probably doesn't add much value, but there's people on, both sides, like on the fringe, that are probably going to really benefit. So more people are going to have more fun at that gathering by just like creates a container to include more people in it, the more explicit we can say it. Because otherwise, some people are going to kind of maybe fall through the cracks. It's not the right expression there, but some people are going to not get the full value out of it.
Yeah, I mean, this is like an extreme example, but I just want to bring in what can happen when you make big promises about what a gathering could be and you don't build any container or think about what it means to hold space, to create a lot of the things we were talking about toward the beginning about those foundational things, like where are the restrooms, like what happens if I have dietary restrictions, like, all the basics is, if anyone knows the story about the Fyre Festival, that's FYRE. It was in 2017, really like promoted as this like luxury music festival happening in the Bahamas, selling tickets at like real premiums. There'll be yachts and villas and white sand beach, just really like building this up as being this amazing experience, right? Turns out none of the structure of it was there. People didn't even have water to drink. It was like worst case scenario
Yeah,
of,
they're
I
like
mean,
stranded on an island without food and water or
bathrooms.
toilets or a place to stay, and then there's a storm. And yeah, so that's a case where like
Yeah.
they were focused on the overall promise or value, but didn't even have the basics in place. So it's like it's not even a matter of communicating where the bathrooms are. They didn't even have the bathrooms. It's like,
Yeah.
like in a yoga class, you think like, oh yeah, the bathroom's down the hall on the left. You just tell people so then they know.
But if
But
you sent them down
but
the hall and they're
but
like legit wasn't a
but
restroom.
if you forgot to have that base thing, ooh, yeah, like, so I mean, it's interesting to think about those base things matter. They're the foundation of, even if we have the highest, loftiest, most awesome goals or aims of a gathering, sometimes we need the base things that seem so boring. We need to
Absolutely.
take
As an
care of each
event
other.
planner,
Yeah.
it's critical. I mean, it comes back to that initial thing I said about it's invisible architecture
Yeah.
of connection. So if your goal is to connect with a singular person, a group of people, whatever it is, if your goal is some sort of, we're going to gather, we're going to have some meaningful connection, you got to take care of all the boring basics and you
Hmm.
got to make people feel safe enough to enjoy whatever the experience of gathering is.
Yeah. And so many of those basic things, we don't, we take them for granted until we don't have them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like I think about a yoga class, like having a smooth flowing sequence, getting your rights and lefts correct, and having all that balance there. That's all necessary and great, but it's not the main event. But if we're missing it and it's a clunky class, then we notice. We're like, where's the
Mm,
flow? Right? But if all we have is those basics and we don't have I don't know, the icing on the cake and the real integration, the depth, we'll miss that, but we're going to miss the basics more if we don't notice that, if we don't have that. And yeah, so I love that idea of that's like was it the invisible architecture?
of connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like when it's done well, you shouldn't notice any of it. You shouldn't be thinking about the bathrooms or is there going to be
Yeah.
water or am I going to be able to hear what the host is saying or am I going to have a comfortable seat? Like when it's done well, it's great. You shouldn't notice them. And it makes me think of like it's the energy in the room or in the space. It's how you make people feel, like you're saying with the yoga. Like they're not going to remember what poses didn't really go together or felt clunky. They're going to just remember it felt uncomfortable. I didn't really like it. It was lacking some sort of like flow. And it makes me think of that Maya Angelou quote where she says, people will forget what you said, forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
Hmm.
So when you think about that, it's like, yes, do all the homework, build all the structure, let people know what to expect, and then bring your best self. Like if you're the host or the participant, like because it's how you make people feel. That's what they're going to come back for, right? It's like
Yeah.
if you're hosting a dinner and they leave just feeling like, wow, I mean, yeah, they're going to maybe remember the food, but it's going to be like, did I laugh? How did I feel after I left their house? Wow, I really want to do that again.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about how can we, there's almost two categories of curating a space or a gathering. And like we need those foundation things. So I'm thinking about right now in this moment, it's wintertime outside, but we're inside, so we're warm. So that's necessary
Yeah.
to keep us comfortable.
We wouldn't have this conversation if our
Yeah.
teeth were chattering.
Yeah, so we have comfortable chairs. We do have water sitting by the fire. We have all that, which allows us to feel at ease and comfortable. But if that's all we had, and then thinking about the podcast, we need good sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if all we had was good sound and we're sitting in comfortable chairs, there's no magic there. But it's necessary to have those basics. And so there's like the basics that we need, and then there's the magic that we're adding in on top of the basics, which makes the things memorable and sacred and special, or the most powerful experiences in our lives, right? Are when we gather with someone and all the basics are there, and that creates a space, but then there's something else that elevates it to make it a special experience for us. And that's the intention. And yeah, some of the goal outcome. So there's almost like two categories of things, the basics and then the magic.
I love that, making magic.
Yeah. I mean, we do like, different spaces are magic, but I don't think we should take for granted the basics too, because those are critical.
It's what allows you to relax into and make the most of and enjoy the experience. Otherwise, often you can't.
Yeah, it's kind of like the foundation of the building, right? Like the building's, it's not going to work. Like the Fyre Festival, it didn't work because they didn't have a foundation.
Yeah.
They had the goal and maybe they had some of the talent there, but they didn't have the foundation. So it just didn't work. Like this podcast wouldn't work if the sound was terrible.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
We could have the most amazing things like you do every day. But if it's not enjoyable to listen to, it wouldn't work.
Yeah. And the example of the Fyre Festival just makes me think about what is our responsibility if we are hosting something or facilitating something, right? We can't create this fantasy world and manipulate people into buying a ticket and then have nothing for them, right? So it's a little bit about integrity and doing the work, so that if you value the people that are showing up, like, I mean, in some cases it might be family and friends and people you really love. In some cases it might be someone you've never met, but like if they're putting their time or money or whatever into it, like, you want to have something for them that is valuable, because otherwise, what are we doing? Like, we want whatever we're doing to be, I don't know, I'm thinking maybe it's a stretch, but like love in action. Like, I'm going to hold this space and care for you in it. And even if it's a work meeting, it can still be that way. Maybe it's not love as a stretch, but like care for, concern for, compassion for the people that show up, and making it possible for them to experience it fully.
Yeah, this is where the basics and the magic can sometimes cross over or overlap each other. I'm thinking about a yoga class, but then there's construction next door that day or something. Yeah. So like you have this noise, which you didn't expect, but is there. So the basics aren't quite optimal, but you can use the magic to overcome that obstacle as a group. And maybe you even integrate it, or certainly acknowledge it and try to integrate it as an extra practice, like, but then there's some basics, like let's say there wasn't heat at the studio for some reason. That might be an obstacle that you can overcome. So then you would have like kind of an obligation to cancel and refund.
Oh, yeah.
But maybe the noise you can overcome and with some of the magic. So it's like I guess I'm just thinking, like, even if we don't have all of the foundational things in place perfectly, we can overcome some of them, but maybe there's a point where we can't overcome it. And that's sometimes a hard line to know where it is as a facilitator.
Especially since everyone's again, back to those access needs are different. Like I'm a highly sensitive person. So the loud noise, while
Yeah.
we could create humor around it and try to
Yeah.
overcome it, it would be hard for me to enjoy an experience with a lot of loud, distracting
Yeah.
sound because it upregulates my nervous system, and I would just feel like I'd be kind of stressing the whole time, But
Yeah.
for somebody else, it might be okay.
Yeah. So that goes back to, I guess, transparency from the beginning of what to expect or what it is.
But like when it happens, like you're saying,
Yeah.
unexpected in the moment,
Yeah. So
yeah.
then it's like letting people, I guess, make their own decision in a way. Maybe the facilitator decides to go ahead or not. But then there's also a middle ground where it's the individuals that get to decide.
So one thing Priya Parker says is laid back as a host is not always the best. And she actually doesn't advise it. Like, so she's saying chill is a selfish choice as the container holder, basically. It's like you can still have the energy in your space of like, oh, wear your comfy socks and your sweatpants because that's kind of like, but prepare people. Like that's what we're doing here. We're going to watch a Super Bowl. We're going to do it in our pajamas or,
Yeah.
right? Like give people, tell people what to expect. It doesn't mean that it has to be rigid, but she's saying that having some sort of like rules or expectations is helpful. So like, that's interesting and maybe a thing I've never really thought about. I think sometimes I would be the more like hyper concerned person. Like, is everything put away? Is everything clean? If somebody's coming over, I might be a little like uptight about it. And then when people come, try to chill out a little. But I'm like, I guess just with experience, finding that sweet spot of hosting where there's comfort and ease for people coming, and also there's structure. Like both of those together in some sort of balance feels important.
But what I was hearing you say is that being passive or being a participant when you're the organizer is often going to be a great challenge.
Right.
It's not going to be beneficial.
Structure is kindness,
Yeah.
basically, right?
I see that. I guess with the exception, I would push back of if you create a space that is open and each individual is empowered to kind of like be the leader or take charge. And because I could see that's the space. It's more like I'm doing my thing, come join me if you want, versus, yeah, I'm organizing this dinner party. I'm just thinking about the difference of like, yeah, when I organize a dinner, maybe I am more in take charge. But if I'm just sitting out by the fire and I invite a few friends over, it's more like I'm just chilling out. If you want to join, you can, but I'm not going to entertain you. You can sit and talk with me if you want.
But it might be helpful
energy
for people to understand, oh, there might be music and,
Yeah.
oh, I have to put, my son's going to go to bed at this time, so I'm going to want to end it at there are certain structure things you could say.
Yep.
Like my aim would be to close it up. We'll have some snacks, but maybe not a full meal. Like, so there are things that are helpful to know. And so I have a question for you. I'm curious, and maybe it is different for different gatherings, but generally speaking, is container creation, like when does it turn from like a loving structure into like over controlling the situation?
What would over controlling mean? Like, what would the symptoms of that be?
Well, I'm thinking about how well you hold space. You make people feel safe enough to share and you let them share. And then sometimes you redirect or move things in a different, you have a real ease, but also a structure. And I guess for people who might be like new to that or curious about that, is there a line at which you can feel that the energy shifts in the room because you've gotten a little too controlling or too, does that make sense?
Yeah. So thinking about balancing multiple things. So mostly I've done in the context of a yoga teacher training program. So kind of have three kind of goals in that. There's three aspects, I think. One is the content learning, right? So that's
the purpose.
That's an important part. One of the purposes.
Sure.
So we spend time on that. One is, I would say, the personal growth and transformation that happens with the individual.
Mm.
That's a big purpose. And it's very different than the content learning, right? Learning how to teach, learning how the poses is different than learning about myself, learning about my life, reflecting, all these things. And then the third one is the community aspect and the energy that is created with the friendships and bonds and the community itself.
Yeah.
So all three, balancing all three. So then each time we gather, I might have an agenda of, let's say, a ratio in my mind. We're spending about an hour on content. I'm going to be lecturing. They're going to have questions. Then we're going to I want them to share and reflect personally. And maybe we do that. And then I also want to make sure that we bond as a group and have time for that. So then that ratio is flexible depending on what comes up, right? Because maybe in the content, it brings some emotional thing for people, for some individual, and they start having an emotional experience or release. So then as a facilitator, I need to decide what's the most important thing right now. Is it the content? Is it the group? Or is it the individual?
Mm.
And if it seems like a super powerful breakthrough for the individual, I will allow some time for that. And I recognize that time is at the expense of the content. It might be at the expense of the other individual's time, right? Like maybe there's some individuals that aren't getting that much out of this 15 minutes. But that one individual is getting so much, so it's worth it.
So you're thinking about value.
Yeah, it's like, is this worth it? Like, and if it, like the times when I think that's worth it, like, and usually it's like 15 minutes. Sometimes it might be a half hour focused on one person. Now, I do think that everyone gets some value, but I think that the overall group, like the value for the other individuals could be more if we weren't focusing on this one person. So there is a trade-off. I'm recognizing that. And I don't know, it's just like a intuitive game that I have to run through the scenarios in my head. So and it's like a one-time thing for this one person, right? So like if I think about it in a training, maybe each person gets one or two of those individual breakthrough times at the expense of the content and the group.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes that individual may love that and want it every time. Not going to allow that because that cost is too much. And the marginal benefit of having more of those breakthrough moments for that person, it just goes down, right? We get like, we just need to be opened up to it. And then it's kind of like our work to do. But it's like having that one experience, it can be pivotal for people in their lives. So then it's like, if I recognize, every weekend this person wants this time, that's not going to be allowed, right? You got your time. Maybe we can do some other private stuff. Here's some other resources. Not that don't want to support them, but we just need to balance the other
it's how
focuses.
Much space and time they're taking up within the group,
the group, yeah.
So when I've learned about this, they actually state it really clearly right up front, is that sometimes it's your role to step up and share more. I mean, if you feel comfortable, right? To speak your voice into the group and share something, like if you've been pretty quiet and just mostly observing. And sometimes it's your role to step back and not take up so much space and time in the group, and just the awareness of that, right? So just calling out that it's each individual's duty to sort of like pay attention to how much they're consuming the energy and time in the space.
Yeah, the more people can self-regulate in that way, the better. In general, my sense is a good approach if people are trying to cultivate, deep spaces, is to encourage more contribution. And as a facilitator, I guess, assure people that you're in, I guess, control of the space, or you're going to let people know if they're sharing too much. Not that you're going to let them know, but people don't need to worry about sharing too much. You're going to regulate that and move the conversation on. And then there's some tricks to do this. Like go around in the circle and have everyone. I mean, we do this in a lot of things, right? Introduce yourself and say where you're from, right? So that's a way to get participation from everyone. So we're getting more participation out of each person. So some people wouldn't say anything. We're hearing from them. But then also the people that want to say more are trimmed down and the boundaries set on what they can say. So there's different tricks. Sometimes we want to do kind of popcorn style and have people share randomly what's coming up for them. Sometimes we want to go around in the circle and give each person 1 minute to share.
I think a lot of those skills that you're sort of describing in like structured spaces of like, say, a yoga teacher training or maybe a container held in a workshop or that sort of thing can really be pertinent for things we don't think of putting that structure on. Like, for example, say it's like a retirement party and people think they might know what to expect. Oh, like maybe we'll sit down to dinner. We're celebrating this one person's work accomplishments and the fact that they'll have more free time now, whatever, right? And so, okay, I love the 3 parts you mentioned, okay? Because I think like the content part or the primary purpose would be, okay, we're celebrating this individual and like their career and, the work they put out into the world and things, right? And celebrating the fact that they have the ability to retire. The group part, which I think is really interesting, I think Priya Parker talks about a little bit too, is like, what if you gave individuals that were invited to this party a certain task and they knew about it ahead of time? Like, we're going to do a go around in a circle and we're going to share a funny or memorable thing about working with this person or whatever it is, a funny story. We're going to limit it to 2 to 3 minutes, like, or whatever it is, just so they know what to expect. They can get it ready ahead of time. And then this is where the group or the community can sort of participate and bond. And then the individual experience is a little richer. And maybe you could even speak to that. You could say, maybe go up and share a thing of gratitude to the person. Anyway, so I think those 3 dynamics can play out in lots of social gatherings that we don't think about too.
Yeah, and I can imagine in that part. So like we're sharing a 2-minute story about your memory of this person, and one person starts to go long, right? So then you need, as the organizer, you need to decide, is this worth it? Is this a powerful story that it's worth everyone spending more time on? Is it worth it for the person who's retiring to listen, or is it worth it for the person saying, or is it worth it for the group? Like you need to like win those, and sometimes it will be, and sometimes they're just rambling on. Like,
and it makes
we've
me
all
think
heard
about
that.
You can't overindulge and drink too much if you're like, say, the host and you're supposed to be kind of, creating that structure. If you're not kind of on it, then it falls apart.
Yeah, so that goes back to being chill as the leader. Like you can't
be too chill or too off. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're really going to curate the space. Yeah, I love that idea. I think about I did this with my parents. We were estranged for a few years, and like kind of in the coming back together, we had structured conversation. So we're going to meet once a week. Sometimes there's an hour, sometimes 2 hours. So it's like that structure in itself. And then what we did was structured. We had a couple different structured, but having a structured conversation, even if it's I talk for 2 minutes, you talk for 2 minutes, I talk for 2 minutes, you talk for 2 minutes, it breaks the norms and it creates safety because we know what's happening.
And we could prepare ourselves.
And we can prepare, and there's kind of like some new rules. There's explicit rules that we're gonna abide by. Otherwise, we fall into old patterns, right?
Yeah.
Where maybe one person dominates and one person doesn't talk. So that's a pattern that becomes a unspoken rule of what's acceptable. You switch that up, then all of a sudden the dynamic is totally different. And I love that example of a retirement party and giving 10 people a chance, 2 minutes to share a little story. It's some structure. You're going to get a better outcome with structure than without structure.
Because I think the whole point is that the people attending the party, but maybe more importantly, the person retiring, feels like it's a fulfilling experience, right? I think that's the goal for all of this, is that the structure allows for the purpose to be delivered in maybe, hopefully, a magical kind of way that's memorable, that's satisfying. Like if you go to an event of some sort and the space is held really well and the container, the leader, it's all kind of figured out, the potential for that magic, the potential for that fulfillment, and like the beauty of connection is possible. And I think that's the whole point,
Yeah.
right?
I'm thinking about New Year's dinner. In my family, often, maybe every year, we would say a New Year's resolution, right?
Mm.
So it's some structure, right? Go around after dinner and say something.
By the
And
way, I didn't know that. So that was an example of everybody in the family already knew that that might be coming up, and maybe they have already prepared a little bit for like what it is that they wanted to like say or write down.
yeah,
And luckily I'm pretty good at being like
yeah,
in the moment coming up with that. But for some people that would have been like, what do you mean I'm supposed to do this and I
yeah,
didn't know, and now I feel put on
yeah.
the spot. So anyway,
But
but
I'm
yeah.
just thinking about the depth that that little structure adds to
Yes.
that dinner. Doing things in a different way. It, and again, like I said, going around so we can hear from everyone. Like some people would just say one sentence, and that's fine,
Mhm.
but they're still participating. And some people say something that's very deep and is like that they really want to do in this next year,
Mhm.
and you learn about that. And it's a great way to
And it
do.
allows you to bond with
Yeah,
people
and
and
you
share.
bond.
Your mom's really good at that, about like just making a casual dinner into something that has a little more depth to it.
Yeah, so having some type of structure, even if it's a topic, like we have a topic each week for our yes gatherings, right? And that's some structure. Like we're talking about patience. So then it's like it directs the energy in that way.
Yep.
Whereas just having something open ended, well, what are we going to do, right?
And we do
Um,
let people know what it is ahead of time. And we're doing these podcasts a few days ahead of the gathering. So if they want to listen to
yeah.
at least how we're thinking about patients, then they can come with their feedback. In fact, that just happened to us, right? One of our yes gathering participants was like, ooh, I actually have a difference of opinion on what the shadow side of patients looks like. And that was really fun to hear. Like, that's the kind of engagement that I'm hoping to get more of out of this podcast. Like, this really like was an aha thing, or this was interesting, but I disagree, or like, you know what I mean? Like, that's where it's juicy and fun for me.
Yeah. So on that note, if you are listening, we'd love to hear from you. The easiest way is just to go to a quiet room and record a voice memo with your comment or your question or yeah, whatever your comment is, and then send it to us. And
Yeah.
then
Our emails in the show notes.
maybe it would be cool to start, playing them and responding and have a more of a discussion. Yeah,
Totally.
I would like that.
Yeah, totally.
It's interesting to think about how structure creates openness or potential for freedom and creativity. It's kind of a juxtaposition of two things that I often think don't go together. But I mean, I find like in my life, the more I schedule things, it almost like frees up time for me. Whereas
Yeah.
if I don't schedule things, I might need to like find myself without as much free time. I don't understand that, right? And I'm just thinking like, yeah, at a gathering, the more structure we have, then it can flourish that much more. Whereas if we don't have that structure, the conversation at a dinner party might not really go anywhere that interesting.
Mm. I want to dive into a little bit about like what you think it means to create specifically a sacred space. And I have, maybe you can comment on these, 3 S's. So safety first, that's the first S. Structure second. Spirit third. And spirit is probably like the magic you're talking about creating, or that sacredness.
Yeah, so safety, structure, and spirit. That sounds good. So the question is, how do we create a sacred space in a group?
Or anywhere really, for yourself, for even if just one other person, but like what helps a space in particular up level to something that feels sacred?
Well, we've talked about the basics a little bit, and there are certain basics that can help us be more at ease. So if we want to think more, access more spiritual aspect of ourselves, we kind of have to transcend our physical self,
Mm,
right? So we don't want to be hungry. We don't want to be sore. We don't want to be occupied by the body.
distractions.
Distracted by the body, like, which we are a lot in our life because we need to take care of our body.
Or other
But
distractions too, right?
yeah,
Like
but when we're
phones and
doing that, we don't access the spiritual aspect as much, or it's harder, I think.
yeah.
So the more relaxed, at ease, comfortable we are, often we can access some more spiritual aspects. So I would focus on having good lighting, good heat, good noise level, all that stuff. Probably think about what would work for you as an individual, and then that'll probably work for the people that you're gathering with. But you can also, take cues over time and figure out what the right combination is for that group. And I guess maybe like in terms of so that's kind of like some safety things, but in terms of like safety, it's probably more issue of, this is a safe space for us to share and to bring all of yourself. So you don't need to worry about, I guess, being different than you are, right? So you
Come as you are.
come as you are, right? So I'm just thinking, like,
Yeah.
it is interesting because we do often have kind of dress codes to different things, or there are
Behavior codes too.
behavior codes, but, and you can, and I think it's good to share those actually to the best in a lot of situations, like what to wear something comfortable to yoga class, let's
Oh,
say.
yeah.
But if somebody comes in just jeans, or if they come in
A suit.
a suit,
Yeah.
you can still deal with it and
Sure.
create a safe space of, it's fine. Don't worry about it. You're in a suit. We're going to make the best of it. It's fine. Like, you don't need to
Make people feel comfortable.
feel uncomfortable that you're not fitting in that way.
Mhm.
Right. Like, and the same thing with ability, right? Or knowledge. Like, it's okay not to know something, and that's safe. Like, any question is a good question. And if we can feel that, then we're going to be more open to asking questions. So like on that regard, how do we allow people to feel safe to ask questions? Well, then as the leader, we want to lead by example. So maybe we ask a question of the group that is honest, not like we need to make something up, but we're ignorant of something in the world. At least I'm ignorant of lots of things in the world. So I might ask the group a question that they all know the answer, but I honestly don't know. Maybe it's about popular culture. Like, is the thing that comes up now is like, I didn't know about Bad Bunny as a musician. I just never heard of him. So
Mhm.
I don't know if people did or not. That's a question where I feel like I could ask to show that any question is okay. Because my
Mhm.
guess is a lot of people do know him, because if he was at Super Bowl, he's obviously popular.
As a facilitator, humanizing yourself and
Yeah.
being vulnerable and asking questions and showing that you're learning alongside them is important.
But if I ask this question, have any of you heard of him before the Super Bowl? And then like 3/4 of the people, I would imagine most people would say, yeah, of course. Like, so then it's like a way to ask a question that seems so obvious to a lot of people. Then it opens up, and I'm doing that as a facilitator, then it opens up, anyone can ask any question, even if they think it might be obvious, but they don't know the answer. Or sharing a story about some mistake that we made the last day, or I maybe it is a story about going to a dinner party and you made a little mistake, like etiquette mistake, and or just like humanizing yourself.
Making people feel comfortable.
It then gives other people permission to be human,
Right.
right?
I love that.
So that's one way we can make people feel comfortable, by, I guess, pretending or being comfortable ourselves to be human, right?
Yeah.
And like I often make fun of my clothes because I don't know, it's just like a funny thing. Like I'm not that stylish, but every now and then I'll get a new shirt or something and I'll say like, oh yeah, I'm so cool. I got this new shirt. And it's just funny to like, I don't know, joke around and make light of things as a facilitator with things that are very real, but also very light. And I think it gives people permission to do that or to be that way. Other ways to make people feel safe is to, well, I think giving clear instruction. So let's say we're doing an activity or exercise to explain what it is fully, maybe even to demo what it is.
Yep.
And then maybe even to share some of the things we might expect as the benefits. And then maybe also to share some of the things that often people fail at in the past, right? So it's like painting the full picture of it. The more we know going in, the safer we're going to feel, as opposed to if we just reveal one step at a time, there's some uncertainty.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we're going to divide into two groups. Well, why are we doing this? Like, do I want to be with a person that I want to share with or don't want to share with, right? Like, it's like the more we know, the better. Divide into pairs, partners. Well, why? What are we doing? If we know what we're doing, I'm going to feel safer to choose a partner for that exercise.
So I just want to go back to creating the sacred spaces. Are you then saying that safety is a big foundational piece to going deeper into somebody's maybe spiritual space or sharing or like what?
Yeah, I was going based on the three things that you said. Yeah, I think safety is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, safety is a huge thing. We want to feel safe.
And we talked a lot about structure already. So safety, structure, and spirit. One thing I want to touch on is in some contemplative traditions, so like Patanjali is well known in the yogic world, he says environment shapes consciousness. So that just makes me think of like saying that whatever it is we're doing here with this time matters. And whatever it is for maybe the facilitator or the community that makes them feel like this is an intentional, important thing that we're doing here, that maybe even depth of self is welcome here, kind of invites in more philosophical, spiritual depth types of sharing, maybe a little bit of ritual that makes it feel more sacred. Does that?
Yeah, so when I think about ritual, so it could be some activities that you do, like some rituals, maybe take 3 deep breaths together, or maybe the group is praying together, or maybe the group is reciting some chant together, or maybe they're lighting a candle together. Yeah, we have lots of rituals that can, maybe create a little magic by doing them together. Makes me think about anything that reminds us of the divine. So it could be,
A candle, fire, something?
yeah, it could be any of the elements. We think about the elements as being representative of the divine. Could be a picture of, could be our ancestors, could be our teachers, could be different deities, could be whatever reminds you of the divine if we have them around us
In the space, yeah.
in the space. And it's a metaphor, right? But it's also
Symbolic, though.
yeah, or symbolism is a better term. But there's also some touching of it when you see that symbolism. There's some knowing. And then you were hinting at even the symbolism of saying we're gathering here for this purpose, right? Or every breath is sacred, right? Like we can just breathe, or we can say we're taking sacred breaths, and then all of a sudden, every time we
It
breathe,
up-levels it.
every time we breathe, we're breathing in the divine air
Yeah.
of life, and we can it's actually giving us life by breathing in. Wow.
So the language matters a lot. The space
Yeah.
matters, the language matters to create like a holding of the
Mm-hmm.
space. Yeah. Are there any last things you want to share about, I don't know if you have a story or an experience or any kind of wisdom?
I guess I'm just thinking about people who, well, I've observed people get a lot out of going into special spaces. We all do, right? So we can maybe seek out those spaces more that we know we benefit from, whatever they are.
Mm-hmm.
But then also we can maybe up level or add depth to the spaces or relationships we have by thinking about how can we curate those a little bit more intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're having, let's say, a challenging conversation with a friend, what can we do to create that space so that it's going to be most beneficial? And it's going to be a lot of the same things, right? Let's make sure we're well fed, we're comfortable. Let's set an intention. Let's set some foundation and say, like, yeah, we've been friends for a long time. I want to continue being your friend. And I've had this challenge come up and I wanted to address it. So like, yeah, and then you create that container and then maybe even create some structure around that. And I want to share for 10 minutes and then I'd love to hear from you for 10 minutes. And then let's see where it goes from there.
Yeah.
It's going to be very different if we do that. And I brought some scones, right? And tea. It's going to be very different than just kind of bringing it up randomly and you say like, I didn't like it when you did this.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have set that space and yeah, and then you go into it, it's going to add a positive quality to the interactions. I guess you could run into the challenge of maybe it comes as over controlling, but probably not in most cases.
I mean, I think any well-held space feels special. Maybe not always sacred, but it feels like you are doing something that matters
Yeah.
when it's really well held like that. Like saying I care about our friendship before sharing something that's hard for you. That's important. And then I would say if you have found what feels like an important space to you that you feel comfortable in, consider sharing it with a friend to share a little bit more about yourself. Like, oh, I really love going to this bookshop and reading quietly with some tea. Would you want to join me? It seems like a weird thing to bring a friend to, but if it's really shows a bit about who you are, or I found these yes gatherings, I'm really getting something out of them. I would love if you would come along with me sometime. So I would just say, like, share those intentional, sacred, well held spaces with your friends if you feel like they might like it too, or even if you're not sure they'll like it, but it shows them a little bit more of who you are.
Yeah. No, that's a great idea. I'm just thinking like to get to know anyone better, experience them in different spaces,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go out, listen to some music, go for a walk, have dinner. Like every space is different and it brings out a different aspect of ourselves.
Yeah.
So it can be great because we want to share ourselves with them, but it can also be a great way for us to get to know them in a different way.
And I'm surprised we haven't gone here, but maybe you want to close with just saying that, like, one of the most beautifully held spaces, the most, I think, most sacred space that there is a space that is curated by, I don't know, maybe the divine, which is nature. You know, nature untouched is just beautiful. It's perfect just as it is. Has all the elements.
Yeah, for sure. And the same things apply for that, right? Like we need to feel safe there, which means the more familiar we are with it, the safer we feel because we know things like even if like so I have some hikes around that I do often, so I know every aspect of it. So I feel very safe there. If I go on a new trail that I don't know, there's a level of comfort that's lost like in that unknowing.
Mm.
So the safety aspect goes down slightly, not like a big thing, but if you've never gone out hiking or out in nature, you're not going to feel that safe at first until you get to know it, right?
Well, we facilitated some hikes, some like guided hikes,
Yeah.
and that has people really loved them because we did really create a lot of structure around the experience.
Yeah, I mean, it can be simple things too, like we're going on this trail. You don't need to worry about, just meet us here. You don't need to worry about where we're hiking because we know the way and we're going to guide you. You don't need to worry about time. We even brought some snacks. You don't need to worry about safety, like being out in the woods alone or something. People are concerned about that sometimes, like because you're with the group. And a lot of those things are taken care of. So, yeah, I think a lot of people can benefit from going out in nature with other people who are more familiar with it and who, can already kind of like, understand it and bring that safety aspect to it. Yeah, get outside in nature. It's a great space.
And I would say for the listeners, if they don't already have containers and spaces where they feel like they're getting some magic out of it, create it for yourself or go looking for facilitators or hosts that you trust that can hold space for you, because I find it creates such beautiful belonging and memorable experience. It's some of the most special kind of juicy parts of life.
Yeah, for sure. I would say, I hope everyone can find the spaces that they find magical.
Thanks for tuning in to That's So Intimate. If this episode sparked something for you, hit subscribe and share it with someone you care about. We're growing this beautiful community, one conversation at a time.
Got a word or topic you want us to explore? Send us an email or find us on Instagram. We love hearing from you. We'll be back next week with more connection, curiosity, and intimate conversation.